In this video we show how you can use Fusio API Framework to build complex APIs with a clean architecture. To get started, we first install Fusio on a clean database by simply executing the migrate command. As next step, we also add an admin user which we need later on to execute the deploy command. To describe the database structure of our app, we create an migrations folder. Through the generate command, we can then create an empty migration. At this migration file, we describe the table schema. In this case, it is only a simple to-do table. Now we execute the migrate command again to execute the migration. This actually creates the table at our database. We now use the table generator to automatically generate classes for each table. This provides us a type-safe way to work with our database. You also need to create a generate folder where all classes are placed. The to-do class now represents our to-do repository. This is also the place where you would add custom SQL queries. As next step, we create a type schema specification which models our request and response payload. This example simply contains a to-do and collection payload which we will use at our endpoint. The generate model command reads these specifications and automatically generates all models at the model folder. Now we create a view class which we use to return all to-do entries at our collection endpoint. The view class uses our nested builder to easily generate complex JSON structures. To get the data from the table, we use the to-do repository. Also, we can reference all column names through the automatically generated column constants. As next step, we create a service class which contains the business logic to create, update or delete to-do entries. In this example, our service class only contains the logic to insert a new to-do entry. As input, we get the model class which we have generated through the type schema specification. Then we create a to-do row where we insert the value. This would also be the place where we can add additional validation logic. As last step, we create the fitting actions. An action is invoked by Fusio in case the user invokes a specific HTTP route. The getAll action represents our collection endpoint. It uses our view class and returns all to-do entries. All action classes are auto-wired by the Symfony DI container, so you can simply define all dependencies in the constructor. We pass the start index and count query parameter to our view class to provide basic paging options. Then we add the create action, which contains the logic to create a new to-do entry. Therefore, we use the to-do service, which contains our business logic, to create a new to-do entry. The getPayload method of the request object contains the JSON data as fully typed PHP object, which we have generated through our typeschema specification. As response, we use the message model, which we have also generated. As last step, we need to create the meta files where we define our operations and assign the fitting schema and action classes. We need to uncomment some lines at the container configuration file to activate auto-loading. This is also the place where you can configure all your DI services. Now we have built our complete API. To make it available to Fusio, we need to execute the deploy command. This command basically reads our meta files and uses the internal Fusio API to create the fitting operation, action and schema objects. To test the API, we now simply use the PHP Storm internal HTTP client to invoke our endpoints. At first, we call the collection endpoint, which should return an empty collection. Then we create a post request to create a new to-do entry.